So, what if I told you that for 500 years, a huge part of a country's history was basically a secret? A story about gender diversity that was once celebrated, then violently stamped out, and is only just now being brought back into the light. We're about to take a journey through the Philippines to uncover this hidden history of its transgender identities.
And our guide for this is Dr. Brenda Alegre, a Transpinay scholar who starts with this really personal and powerful question. For her, this isn't just some academic paper. It's a search for herself in the pages of history, a search for a lineage that she always felt in her gut was there, but missing.
And to even begin this search, Dr. Alegre came up with a brand new word, and it is powerful: transcestors. It's this beautiful idea that connects today's trans identities in the Philippines all the way back to an ancient, powerful lineage. It's saying, we've always been here. And you know what? We're about to meet them.
Okay, so let's rewind. Way, way back. Before any colonizers ever showed up, we're stepping into a time when gender was seen in a totally different way. Much more expansive, much more fluid.
See, before patriarchy really took hold, this society was largely matriarchal. And before Christianity, it was animist, this belief that everything, and I mean everything, has a spirit. In that kind of world, what mattered most wasn't your biology. It was your spirit, your role, who you were deep inside.
And right at the very center of this society was the Babaylan. Now, these weren't just priestesses. Oh no. They were the spiritual leaders, the healers, the community counselors, and get this, even warriors. They held this incredibly sacred and powerful role in pretty much every part of life.
And this, right here, is where we meet the transcestors. The role of the Babaylan wasn't just for cisgender women. People who were assigned male at birth but who embodied a feminine spirit. They were known as Asog or Decolonizing. They could also become a Babaylan. Their gender wasn't a roadblock. It was literally part of their spiritual power.
And the power they had was just immense. The Babaylan was second in command, right after the chief. They could heal you, but they could also curse you. They talked to the spirits of nature, and they were trained as warriors. It even went all the way up to their gods, like Lakapati, the transgender goddess of fertility. Just think about that. This was a society where queerness was seen as divine.
And then it all changed. A new force arrived, bringing a worldview that had absolutely no space for the Babaylan, for the Asog, or for their entire spiritual world. This was the great colonial rupture.
For generations, people were taught that Magellan was some kind of hero who brought civilization. But this history forces us to ask a totally different question. Was he a hero? Or was his arrival the very beginning of a 300-year-long project to completely erase a culture and demonize its most sacred people?
Just look at this timeline. The shift is so stark, it's jarring. Before 1521, you have a world where gender plurality is revered. After 1521, you get over 300 years of Spanish colonization, forced Christianization, and the violent suppression of anyone who didn't fit into their rigid New World Order.
And here's what that really meant, side by side. A matriarchal society was replaced with a patriarchal one. Animism was replaced by Christianity. Gender plurality was crushed by a rigid gender binary. And the feminine spirit, once seen as a source of incredible power, was completely flipped on its head and turned into something sinful. It was a total inversion of their whole worldview.
And let's be crystal clear, this was not a gentle transition. It was violent. The Asog and the Babaylan, who were once the spiritual heart of their people, were suddenly branded as devils, as sinners. They were hunted down, they were murdered, or they were silenced, forcing their sacred traditions deep into hiding.
But you can't just extinguish a spirit, right? It doesn't work that way. So after centuries of being silenced, queer identities started to bubble back up to the surface, changed by everything they'd been through. This next part, this is the story of their resilience.
And you can almost trace this incredible story through the words themselves. It goes from the revered Asog in the pre-colonial days, to the postcolonial term bakla, and finally, to the modern empowered identity of Transpinay. Every step is a whole new chapter in this history.
So after the colonial era, the word bakla started to be used. It kind of became this umbrella term for effeminate men, gay men, and trans women. But at its very core was this beautiful concept, pusong babae, which means the heart of a woman. It described an inner truth, no matter what you looked like on the outside.
But life as a bakla was often filled with incredible hardship. The story of Walterina Markova is just a heartbreaking example.
During World War II, she and other bakla were forced into sexual slavery as comfort gays for Japanese soldiers. Their femininity made them targets, and their survival is a testament to an unbelievable and incredibly painful resilience.
Which brings us to this paradox in the Philippines today. Queer people are highly visible. They're on TV, in salons, they're a part of daily life. But that visibility doesn't equal rights. There's this sense of social tolerance, sure, but there's no legal acceptance. No laws to protect them from discrimination, no gender recognition, no marriage equality, nothing. And this lack of protection has deadly, real-world consequences. When a U.S. Marine murdered a trans woman named Jennifer Laude, a truly horrifying idea started to spread. Some people actually said she deserved it for deceiving him. This idea that a trans person's identity is a lie meant to trick people, that is a direct, toxic legacy of colonial thinking.
Well, in response to that kind of reality, a new movement and a new word were born. In 2002, activists from a group called STRP created the term Transpinay. This was a huge act of self-identification. It was a move away from the broad term bakla to a specific, political, and proud identity for transgender women in the Philippines.
So, after all this, where does this hidden history actually lead us? Well, it leads us to the future. It's all about taking this rediscovered past and using it to actively decolonize the present and hopefully build something way better.
And Dr. Alegre lays out a pretty clear path for how to do that. It starts by reconnecting with that glorious, gender-fluid past of the Babaylan. It means pushing back against colonial beauty standards. It means loving your own skin and your own identity, educating the people around you, and taking back the sacred spaces that were stolen.
Because really, at the end of the day, this isn't just a history lesson. It's about actively shaking off the weight of all those colonial ideas that still shape so much of society. It's like a blueprint for building a future that's more authentic, more inclusive, and way more true to the island's actual roots. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question. If the people of the pre-colonial Philippines could see divinity in gender diversity, if they could revere the Asog and Babaylan, what is stopping modern society from doing the same? Maybe, just maybe, the path forward is to look back and finally learn how to decolonize.